Let's visit the islands of Fiji once again for this week's Survivor recap. We're talking season 47, episode 7, and this one was spicy.
It was good.
It was shocking. And let me just say, my theory last week about them trying to listen to fans and not have so much, like production having so much control over the game, throw that out your car window because I was way wrong. They flipped the script on us and did it all this week. So anyway, as the kind of aftermath of Tribal, as there always is, the big thing we see this week is that Rome went home last week in an almost unanimous vote. There was a vote out there, though, for Andy, and so Andy wanted to figure out who this was. Saul basically comes to admit that it was him who put the vote out. I will say his explanation, I don't really think helped his case. Like,
No.
he basically was like, well, I just wanted to throw a vote out in the chance that Rome did use an idol, and then like, what if I was the other vote? And he's like, okay, so you wanted me to go home regardless? So it didn't really make sense.
I mean, it's smart on Saul's part, though, because I mean, you could have had that tie, and that would have saved you from going home if that would have happened.
Saul is playing an interesting game, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but I am curious to see if that bodes well for him or if he will be on the chopping block next. The other kind of interesting thing we see with Andy is that the next morning after Tribal, him and Genevieve kind of have a moment together, and Genevieve's like, listen, I'm on my own. Like, Rome was my number one that went out, and Andy's like, I have no one. So they kind of agree to be each other's number one.
Here's the thing, though. Genevieve is playing a very good game.
Yeah.
And I feel like her hitching her wagon with Andy might not be the best thing just because Andy's unpredictable.
I know. It's weird because he is a wild card, and Genevieve really is like, I want her to be a good player so bad, and so many people are comparing her to Survivor greats like Parvati and Amanda Kimmel and like all these people from like 20 seasons ago on Survivor. And I want to believe that, but she really has no allies. And I'm like, to be a great player, you also have to have allies. You can't just do it on your own. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
She might build some up still, though.
She might. So then we get to the immunity and reward challenge. It's kind of a 2-for-1 in this. And here's why I said throw what I said out the window. Because we get to this challenge and Jeff's like, surprise! You will all compete in this immunity challenge, but you'll be divided in half randomly by a rock draw. One half of you will be safe, you'll win reward, and you will not vote at Tribal. You will kind of sit aside and watch it all play out. Whereas the other half of you, one of you, the last remaining, will win individual immunity, and then you will all go to Tribal and someone will be voted out. Now, how this works is basically, whoever's the last standing, I guess, altogether is who wins for their half.
Yeah.
But the last standing for the other half, I guess, is who gets immunity. Here's what was interesting about this is the split was really odd, even though it was a random draw.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like one half was like a combination of, different players, whereas the other half was all 5 of the remaining Tuku, which was actually the biggest tribe left in the game, and then Rachel, who was on Gata. Yeah, so it was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, if they lose, then Rachel is probably the one that's going to be voted out. Well, funny enough, they are the ones that lose. And also, I guess I should mention this challenge. I like these ones because they're more simple. So it's kind of like a balance beam one where they had this kind of ball contraption and they just had to make the ball stay on and then keep their balance as well.
And I mean, that would have been hard, though. Over your shoulders the whole time on that thin bar.
I'm not saying it would have been easy, but I like this ones because I feel like it's an even playing field. We're not watching them do this massive kind of team-based obstacle course.
And it's simpler to just watch as a viewer at home instead of them like being like, oh, what are they doing now? All over the place.
Yeah, so like I said, that half wins. Kyle ends up winning the individual immunity, which is crazy because he's kind of racking up those wins. Yes. So then we kind of go off to the reward challenge after. So they of course get, what was it, baby back ribs? Is that what it was?
Yeah, baby
yes,
back
they got ribs and this amazing reward. And then they're taking the snap. And what's funny is like you see this half. So Saul and Andy are both in this half, ironically. And you see Andy kind of wake up first from this like nap, and you see him kind of like, or he says he never
went to sleep.
And so he's like looking around for an advantage, doesn't find anything. But then Sierra calls him out. She's like, Andy, you find anything? Which was kind of hilarious. So he goes back. I think he kind of does go back to sleep. So then Saul kind of wakes up, and Saul's like, I know on challenge or on advantage rewards like this that there's an advantage somewhere. So they're looking around. Saul eventually finds it.
And it was by him the whole time too.
Yes, it was by him the whole time. And here's what is so interesting is that this reward is that the person who finds it can send safety without power or the block a vote advantage to the losing half or that night tribal council, someone on that losing half.
Yeah.
This is a complete game changer because it's all anonymous. The person will not know. You don't have to show your cards that you were the one that has it. So this was really interesting. So we get to tribal council. And before tribal council, it's kind of like you see that the Tuku Five are kind of debating, like, do we just get Rachel out? But then you also see the Tuku Five, like, okay, do we save Rachel? And does it make more sense? But then you kind of notice that it's between, like, Tiana's name is kind of thrown out, but also Tiana really wants to get Gabe out. So now it's almost like Gabe versus Tiana, which is
I've never overly liked Gabe since the season. Something
agree.
doesn't sit right with me with him, and I don't care for him.
I don't like him either, and there's something that doesn't sit with me right either, and I don't know what it is, and I can't put my finger on it. So anyway, we get to tribal council, and seemingly, as I said, Rachel, as the outlier, is probably going to be the one that's going to go. Well, as Jeff says, it's time to vote. Rachel stops him and says that she anonymously received the safety without power advantage, which is what this means is that right there in that moment, if Rachel chooses to use it, which she did, she is now safe, cannot be voted out, and immediately leaves tribal council. This now leaves the Tuku Five to vote one of their own off, which was very interesting.
Their faces when they realized she had that were wonderful.
It was also interesting though because I was kind of curious, and I guess we'll never know either way, that if Rachel had not received that, they were just going to vote her off. And it kind of confirmed that I think they were.
I think they were.
Because they all definitely were very shocked. They were sad. You could tell the mood changed completely. It was really interesting. And then they do that kind of traditional Survivor thing that I love, where they all get up and they're like talking, whispering, trying to figure out what they're going to do. And again, you can tell it's going to be between Tiana and Gabe. Now, seemingly, okay, Tiana wants Gabe out. Kyle wants Gabe out. But Carolyn and Sue have been very close since the beginning and kind of working with Gabe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the problem here. So I think Carolyn was probably the decider.
Absolutely.
But what we end up seeing happen is that by a vote of 4-1, Tiana is sent home over Gabe, unfortunately. And I was pretty sad. I would have kind of liked to see Tiana stay. Also with this, I guess the thing I forgot to mention is the person that was voted out is the last person voted out before jury. So she was that close.
She was.
And was sent out.
She was very
It was
upset.
really hard to watch.
It was sad. I was really rooting for her to stay.
Me too. It was so sad. You know what's weird too? I said this to Jory as I finished the episode. For the first time, I think maybe ever, that I've done press for Survivor, all of my preseason interviews have been voted out pre-jury, and that's never happened before. So I'm like very interested.
They knew you were catching on.
I guess they saw that I was catching on. So I'm very interested to see where this season goes in that way.
I feel like it could be anybody at this point. They're all strong players for the most part.
I know,
for the most part.
because it's like I really like Genevieve, I do, but she needs to get more allies. Saul is kind of playing this interesting game that I just had this feeling.
Yeah, he teeters.
And then it hit me that I was like, maybe Carolyn is also an underdog, and I could kind of see her going against Sue at some point, but
I feel
figuring
like
it out. So
she flies under the radar enough, but she's very strategic. Just when she was talking to Tiana earlier in this episode, I really like Sam, but I don't know if he's going to make it that far.
Well, and it's funny because the women are almost standing out to me more this season in the way that I think their storylines are more interesting and more unpredictable, because also like Rachel's always just kind of been a number in my head, like with other people, but after this episode, I'm also kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I can see Rachel winning, but I could see her making it very close to the end.
You know, I forgot until Twitter after this episode. Sue has her idol still. I forgot about that too.
All the red paint that they still none of them question, which is really odd. So, anyway, one quick thing: the next episode of Survivor. The Survivor auction is brought back, which I'm excited. This is only the second time they've done this in the new era, so I think it's gonna be really good. But anyway, that's enough from us for now. So the brand new episode of Survivor airs tonight on CBS, and do not miss it.